So people think workplace discrimination is over. Nah. Many are aware of the social challenges most autistic people face. Few, however, are fully aware of the evidence regarding the institutional discrimination autistics face in virtually every aspect of life, causing us to become dependent on the very systems that systemically abuse and discriminate against us. Much of this surpasses racial, gender, and even most other forms of disability-based discrimination, especially in the realm of the topic of my video today, the job market. While, of course, discrimination against disabilities in the hiring process in the workplace is technically illegal, the statistics for autistic people in the workplace are, frankly, not good. Bad. My argument is, like with Black people and other minority populations in similar situations, discrimination against autistic people is as much economic as it is socio-political. While statistics vary somewhat from study to study, especially given the lack of large-scale studies or meta-analyses on the topic, most available data confirms massive unemployment rates for autistic people. On the high end, according to a study conducted by the UK's National Autistic Society in 2016, 85% of autistic people are unemployed, even though 69% of us want to work. This puts us at or near the bottom of the unemployment rates of all disability groups. Note that this refers only to full-time unemployment, since about 32% work for pay at all, compared to 47% of disabled people and 80% of non-disabled people. The Labour Force Survey from the Office for National Statistics, also from the UK, confirms an unemployment rate of 78.3% for autistic people, compared to 73.5% with people with severe or specific learning difficulties, and 47.9% for the disabled community in general. The data for the US is no more hopeful. Only 14% of autistic people work for pay in the community, a report by the A.J. Drexel Institute indicated in 2017. Whereas 54% participated in an unpaid activity in a facility where most other workers had disabilities, and 27% did not work at all in the 2 weeks prior to the study. Another study, Midlife Social Outcomes for a population sample of adults with ASD, found that among 153 participants, 12% were fully unemployed, 12% were partially employed, and 20% had no form of employment, paid or unpaid. There are other studies showing a higher rate of employment, however. Another 2017 study, Predictors of Employment Status Among Adults with Autism Spectrum Disorder, found an employment rate of 61.42% and an unemployment rate of 38.58%. Interestingly, those who disclosed their autism diagnosis were 3 times as likely to be employed as those who didn't. The reasons for this are most likely connected to the nature of developmental disability. The main one, I think, being the tax credits for businesses with employees with disabilities that might offset the real and/or perceived challenges of hiring autistic employees. Another reason might be related to the type of job discrimination I'll discuss later in the video, in that perhaps people accept the behaviors of autism more through the lens of a diagnosis. So, what's causing this? Well, let's get some obvious factors out of the way first. Autistic people have comorbidities with many other disabilities, so it's not that surprising we would have a lower employment rate than those disabilities at least. Almost half of autistic people meet the criteria for anxiety disorders. Between 10% and 33% qualified for the workforce have epilepsy, about 30% have obsessive compulsive disorder, and 90% experience some form of disordered sleep. On top of this, autistic people are more likely to be a part of groups that are subject to discrimination. About 24% of gender-diverse people are autistic, as opposed to 5% of cisgender people, and are 5 times as likely as cisgender people to suspect they have undiagnosed autism. These inherent associations mean people often discriminate against autistic people for reasons tangentially connected to, but not related to their autism. There's also the problem of stereotypes caused by existing portrayals of autism. Most non-autistic people conceptualize autism as either Rain Man or the Good Doctor, whereas most autistic people fall somewhere between those two extremes. This means we have a problem of either having under-expectations or over-expectations of our abilities, meaning we either don't get the job in the first place, or get the job only to disappoint people who expected too much while perhaps ignoring the accommodations we need. That being said, like I mentioned before, disclosure of an autism diagnosis seems to be associated with higher employment rates, which brings me to the more subtle form of discrimination most minority groups face, the behavioral or cultural. We see this, for example, with accents, as even after controlling for measures of skill and family background, Black speakers who anonymous listeners identify distinctly as Black through their voices earn about 12% less than whites with similar observable skills. We also know that, as a minority, downplaying cultural associations with your minority group increases the likelihood of being hired. Now, of course, it's illegal to discriminate against someone in the workplace because of their accent or adherence to the culture of a minority group. But since businesses need to give little justification for termination, differences in pay or refusal to hire, anyone who wanted to discriminate would have almost no trouble getting around those technicalities. Unless the person in control of those decisions comes right out and says, "Yes, I am discriminating against you because of your accent," or at least drops a clear enough hint to the reason, such as being too urban, you would have few avenues of recourse, because all they would need to say is that you're not a good fit for the work culture, a common and sufficiently vague reason for refusal to hire, for example. If any group would be most likely to experience this form of discrimination, it would probably be autistic people. The very nature of autism creates difficulties with socializing with non-autistic people. On top of this, we often have idiosyncratic ways of speaking and vocal tics. Especially without knowledge of a diagnosis, many non-autistics see our everyday behaviors as weird or creepy without actually being negatively affected, creating a stigma that leads to discrimination and harassment. Even if discrimination does occur overtly, however, a major obstacle to the problem of workplace discrimination against autistic people is our lack of financial independence, largely caused by discrimination. This is a catch-22 causing a horrific cycle of poverty that occurs notably with Black people as well. And that to sue someone over discrimination requires money one and one's family does not have as a result of that discrimination. Given autism is estimated to be 40% to 80% inheritable, the generational nature of this discrimination should be just as clear. Only 58% of autistic people had ever worked between high school and their early 20s. Given a school system that does not prioritize our needs and often underestimates and steers us away from employment paths, the lack of services for autistic adults, and a disability benefit system that punishes attempts to build wealth, it's no surprise autistic people lack the finances to become a stronger socio-political force. So, what can be done? I mean, the way that I presented it, the situation seems pretty bleak, and it is. While any solution would have to be complex to tackle the problem effectively, we should consider some basic principles and policies. First, autistic people must recognize our mutual interest in ending our oppression and have solidarity with each other to promote our socio-political advancements, especially through autistic-led organizations like the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. Secondly, we should use whatever political power we have to advocate for practical solutions for curbing autistic unemployment and building autistic wealth, such as disability benefit reform, more funding for specialized job placement programs, etc. Additionally, we must work towards reforming the laws on workplace discrimination, specifically regarding valid reasons for termination, state representation for potential victims of discrimination, and regulating arbitrary workplace social standards.
The heavy reliance of our employment systems on social cues screens us out. And when one of us does secure a job, failing to meet purely social standards can lead to career stagnation, demotion, or even firing. This discrimination is largely unintentional, but it results in the loss of highly talented and productive employees. By failing to take advantage of this enormous pool of human capital, we are losing money, efficiency, and the potential for further progress.
Finally, so-called autistic awareness campaigns must shift their focus to providing realistic and relevant information regarding the autistic condition so that our needs can be better understood and accommodated, and must emphasize acceptance over simple awareness to prevent the tacit conditioning of ongoing discriminatory behaviors. None of these, or possibly even all of them, will be a fix-all solution. We live in a society that still heavily stigmatizes autistic behaviors and the autistic identity, and purging these biases from our social consciousness will take a significant amount of time and effort. But I think if we try, it will get better, and one day, if we keep our feet on the pedal towards progress, this might all be over. Thanks so much to Fuzzy Zeus, Maria Person, Michael Gallagher, Nora, Technica, The Goat Elaborates, Ann Rust, Oreed, Pamiloka, Darth Cyrax, Garrett Polk, Krampus, Montron, Peanut256, Pinball Witch, Questing Refuge, and Sweet Pea System for sponsoring today's video. If you'd like to have your name read at the end of these videos, please become a patron at patreon.com/satenmadpun. You can also make a one-time donation at paypal.me/satenmadpun. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Again, resources are in the description. Also remember to like, subscribe, and share to anyone you think might be interested in this kind of stuff. This is something I definitely think is really important. So share this around as much as you can, and maybe we can help spread the word at least about this problem. Join my Discord as well, that's in the description. It's especially friendly to autistic people, so if you're autistic, that would be a good place to go. And Thanks so much again. Love you all. Bye!